We've been talking about how we respond to times of darkness, times of anxiety or uncertainty or emptiness when the usual reassurances of life aren't functioning. We often respond by trying to get out of the darkness in ways that have worked for us in the past. Work our way out of it, or play our way out, or spend our way out, or just try to get someone else, even God, to turn off the dark. And what I'm suggesting is in line with what spiritual sages of the past have taught us as far back as Moses and David. Rather than try to escape the darkness around me, why not turn the lights on inside me? Now, what would this mean? Well, consider this wisdom from one of my favorite spiritual mentors, David. He speaks to God and invites me to join him and says, "In your light, we see light," from Psalm 36. And again, David, only this time directed to all of us who join him, look to him and be radiant. The original has a sense of a stream sparkling in the sunlight. So your faces shall never be ashamed. That is, I don't run from the darkness, but I look for his light. I focus not on my own bag of tricks for making the darkness go away, but on his light and how it may be shining on me in this very moment. And the more I focus on his light, the more light there is inside of me. Jesus said, if your eye is clear, your whole body will be full of light. And the more I become his light. And that's saying a lot, I know. Let me share with you an example that may, shed some light. It's an experience I shared with my oldest daughter, and she said it'd be okay if I told you about it. She had her own time of darkness when she was young, and I couldn't spare her from it, no matter how much I wanted to. And she told me that she prayed to God to take away the darkness, and she said she never heard a word, and the darkness stayed. And she resented God for apparently saying nothing and doing nothing, and she essentially cut off further conversation with God. And as a young adult, she stayed away from church and stayed away from anything that would remind her of that painful silence from God. But one day she came to our service at North Hills, knowing that I'd be there and she could pick something up from me. She walked in and sat down, and as I walked over to sit next to her, I heard this emphatic voice inside me say, "Pray, Dennis, pray." So I did, silently, as I sat next to her during the service. Pastor Tom had a potent and personal message about listening for God to speak to us, and he concluded with a time of silent prayer for all of us to listen to God's voice. The service ended. My daughter and I sat quietly as everyone else filed out. And her first word to break the silence was, "Wow." She said, "For the first time in a long time, I prayed." And I asked her, "And did God answer you?" And she said quietly, No. But I knew he was there, and I think that was his answer. It's natural that I want God to speak to me in my time of darkness, and yes, turn off the dark. I want him to answer, and I know what his answer should be. But it just might be the case that his answer is more about me and less about the situation. More than looking for a specific answer, it is realizing that he himself is the answer. And if I'm willing, he shines his light on me and within me. And in the middle of my darkness, I become enlightened. But not before I complain, cry foul, deny there's any darkness in me at all, and live my story of shame or fear or control or rage even more intensely. And in spite of my protests, it becomes even more clear what needs to be purged from my life and what the possibilities of my life could be. These are steps 4 and 5 in the recovery movement, and Principle 4 in Celebrate Recovery: openly examine and confess my faults to myself, to God, and to someone I trust. In your light, I see light. Even in the darkness, especially in the darkness, the light shines. And I see that it's his durable love shining on me, and I surrender to it. I am filled with light. Walk in the light. Become a child of the light. Look to him, David says, and be radiant. Become that sparkling stream reflecting the sunlight. So your faces shall never be ashamed, he says. Old story stays in the darkness. New story lived now in the full light of day.